Apparently, when your dead mother-in-law leaves you a beach house, she's trying to send a message. Something along the lines of, your husband has an entire second family. I always assumed inheriting property would feel like hitting the jackpot, not realizing I'd been the prize in someone else's lottery. You know how crime shows always claim the killer was living a double life? Well, Bowen wasn't just living a double life. He was living a double tax bracket. The call came on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday morning, right in the middle of my third Zoom meeting. Being a marketing director for a tech startup in Portland meant half my life was spent apologizing for my cat walking across the keyboard, and the other half wondering why my husband, a financial consultant, managed to vanish for weeks at a time for client meetings that always happened to fall during school holidays. Mrs. Harlo, this is Bennett Crawford from Crawford and Associates Law Firm. I'm handling the estate of Odessa Harlo. She's left you a significant property in her will. I nearly choked on my overpriced cold brew. There must be some mistake. My mother-in-law died 5 years ago. Cancer. It was devastating for my husband. There was a pause long enough to make my skin prickle. Mrs. Harlo, I'm afraid Odessa Harlo passed away last week. Heart attack. The funeral was Saturday. That was odd. Last Saturday, Bowen told me he was at a financial planning conference in Seattle. I'd even received texts from him complaining about the mediocre hotel coffee and endless PowerPoint presentations. I'm confused, I said. An understatement of the century. The verbal equivalent of calling the Titanic's sinking a minor navigation issue. Perhaps you should come to my office, Mrs. Harlo. There are complications with the estate. 2 hours later, I sat in a leather chair that probably cost more than my car, across from a silver-haired man who looked like he charged by the syllable. Odessa was quite specific in her instructions, Bennett said, sliding a thick manila envelope across his gleaming mahogany desk. She wanted you, not your husband, to inherit the Martha's Vineyard property. Her letter explains that Odessa deserves to know the truth and have a safe place when everything falls apart. Martha's Vineyard. The island where presidents vacation and celebrities escape the paparazzi. We lived in Portland, Oregon. My husband had never mentioned owning property on the other side of the country. There must be a mistake, I repeated, my voice smaller this time. My husband told me his mother died of cancer 5 years ago. We scattered her ashes in the Columbia River. Bennett's eyebrows lifted, inching up his forehead like startled caterpillars. Mrs. Harlo, I've been Odessa's attorney for 30 years. She was very much alive until last Thursday, and quite insistent that you receive this property. With trembling hands, I opened the envelope. Inside were a key, a deed to a waterfront property on Martha's Vineyard, and a handwritten letter. The handwriting matched the birthday cards I'd received from Odessa before she supposedly died. Dear Odessa, by the time you read this, I will finally be gone for real. I've lived with the shame of my silence for 5 years, watching my son deceive you while I pretended to be dead to half my family. The cancer diagnosis gave Bowen the perfect opportunity to kill me off in Portland while keeping me alive in Massachusetts. I was a coward who chose comfort over confrontation. But now that I'm truly dying, I can't take this secret to my grave. The house is yours, not Bowen's, not Talia's. Use it however you see fit. You deserve to know the truth about the man you married. With regret and affection, Odessa. My vision blurred with tears that couldn't decide if they came from grief, fury, or the sheer absurdity of it all. Who's Talia? I asked, even though I already sensed the answer would wreck me. Mrs. Odessa Harlo is your husband's other wife. They've been married for 5 years and have twin children, a boy and a girl. They spend every holiday and summer at the Martha's Vineyard house. A laugh ripped out of me, sharp, unhinged, unstoppable. So, while I've been working 60-hour weeks to pay our Portland mortgage, my husband's been living out his coastal family fantasy with wife number 2. That's innovative financial planning. Bennett shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Harlo? Which Mrs. Harlo? I interrupted. Seems like there's a clearance sale on the name. He cleared his throat. Odessa, Odessa left you the house outright. It's worth approximately $3.2 million. That stopped my laughter cold. $3.2 million. And she'd left it to me, not her son, not his other family. Deline was very clear, Bennett said. She believed you were owed compensation. There's more. He handed me another document. This is the schedule for when Bowen, Talia, and the twins visit the property. They're expected for Thanksgiving next week. They don't yet know about Deline's passing, or the change in ownership. I stared at the neatly printed calendar. There it was, marked in cheerful red ink. Nov, 24/28. Bowen, Talia, Stella, and Felix. Thanksgiving visit. Stella and Felix, my stepchildren, though I hadn't even known they existed. Twins, born within the same year Bowen and I started fertility treatments that mysteriously failed. The doctor says my sperm count is too low. He'd told me once, holding my hand as I cried over another negative test. It's just not meant to be. Apparently, his sperm count rebounded quite miraculously on the East Coast. Does Talia know about me? I asked quietly. Bennett shifted in his seat. I don't believe so. Deline indicated Bowen told Talia you were divorced before they met. So I wasn't just a wife, I was the first wife. The secret one. The ghost in the family portrait. This whole situation was starting to sound like the plot of a particularly dramatic Lifetime movie. I gathered the documents, slipped them into my purse, and stood. Thank you, Bennett. I think I need to see this house for myself. Of course. And may I just say, you're taking this remarkably well. I gave him a tight smile. Oh, I haven't taken it yet. But I will. 24 hours and one cross-country flight later, I was standing on a private beach, keys in hand, staring at a stunning 3-story Cape Cod-style house. Weathered gray shingles, a wraparound porch, and the kind of understated elegance that screamed old money. The sort of place where rich families ate lobster rolls and traded passive-aggressive comments about Cousin Bethy's third divorce. With shaking hands, I unlocked the front door and stepped into my inheritance. The entryway opened to a sunlit living room with vaulted ceilings, nautical decor, and a stone fireplace. And everywhere, absolutely everywhere, were photos. My husband, smiling beside a gorgeous redhead and 2 tow-headed children, who shared his dimpled chin and her bright blue eyes, on. The mantel sat Bowen's lost record collection, the one he swore had disappeared in our last move. On the coffee table lay a photo album labeled Harlo Family Memories. Inside were 5 years' worth of birthdays, Christmases, and beach trips I knew nothing about. The latest photos were dated just 3 months ago. Bowen, laughing as he built sandcastles with the twins while Talia watched, sunlit and happy. August 2025? The same week he told me he was in Chicago for a financial conference. Well, look who's here early. I spun around. In the doorway stood an elderly man with sunburned skin and a casserole dish. You must be Odessa. Deline talked about you all the time. Did she? I managed, my brain struggling to reboot. Oh, sure. She always said Bowen should have been honest with you from the start. I'm Otto Lawson, from next door. Just bringing over my famous tuna casserole for the grieving family. Grieving? I repeated blankly. Such a shame about Deline, he said, shaking his head. The kids adored their grandma. They're so excited to finally meet their bonus mom this Thanksgiving. Deline always said it was high time the truth came out. Bonus mom, not wife, not even ex-wife. Bonus. When does Bowen usually arrive with his family? I asked, already thinking several steps ahead. Oh, always Wednesday afternoon before Thanksgiving. Tradition, he said cheerfully. Are you all right? You look a bit pale, I smiled, something cool and sharp settling behind my eyes. I'm wonderful, Otto. In fact, I think this Thanksgiving is going to be the most memorable one yet. I'm planning a very special surprise. When you discover your husband's secret second family, you have 2 choices, fall apart or get even. I chose option 3, document everything, while planning the Thanksgiving dinner from hell. After Otto left with his questionable tuna casserole, seriously, who brings seafood to a grieving family? I went full Nancy Drew on the Martha's Vineyard mansion. The place was a museum of my husband's parallel life. Family portraits hung perfectly at a height where a 5'2" woman like me would need a stepladder to take them down. How thoughtful of my 6'1" husband. I found the wine, cellar, and uncorked a $300 Cabernet Bowen, apparently, saved for his special occasions. Here, while buying me $12 Merlot for our anniversaries in Portland. Because it's not about the price tag, right? It's about the sentiment. Nothing says romance like, I save the good stuff for my other wife. With liquid courage coursing through my veins, I started photographing everything. The family portraits, the twins' growth charts marked on the kitchen doorframe, the anniversary cards signed Forever Yours, Talia, each one perfectly overlapping with Bowen's so-called business trips from the past 5 years. In his home office, I struck gold. A filing cabinet neatly labeled, Harlo Family, Massachusetts. Held tax returns, bank statements, and property records. Turns out my husband hadn't just committed bigamy. He'd been committing tax fraud, too. He'd filed separate returns in Massachusetts, claiming his second family as dependents, while also listing me as a dependent in Oregon. Financial consultant. My ass, I muttered, snapping photos of every document. More like financial criminal. Then came the jackpot, a joint checking account under Bowen and Talia Harlo. The deposits matched to the dollar. The business expense reimbursements that routinely vanished from our joint account in Portland. My husband wasn't just living a double life. He was funding his beach house fairy tale with my hard-earned money. So I've been paying for their Christmas presents, I said aloud to the empty room. How festive of me. I continued my investigation upstairs. The master bedroom was decorated in coastal blues, the exact color scheme Bowen had always vetoed for our Portland home because blue isn't restful. Apparently, blue was plenty restful when he was sleeping beside Talia. The twins' rooms were perfect little mirror images, Stella's in lavender, Felix's in green. Their nightstands held books inscribed, To my favorite little readers, Love Daddy, in Bowen's handwriting. The same Bowen who'd once told me kids were exhausting when I asked if he'd attend my nephew's birthday party. In the guest bathroom, I found 2 toothbrushes, one electric, Bowen's preferred kind, and one manual with red bristles. Back home, he'd insisted on keeping his toothbrush in a separate holder because sharing is unsanitary. I guess hygiene standards shifted depending on the zip code. By evening, I was sitting on the porch swing, surrounded by evidence of my husband's double life, when another neighbor approached, a woman in her 60s wearing Lululemon and carrying, of course, a casserole dish. Martha's Vineyard apparently thrived on casseroles and denial. You must be Odessa, she called cheerfully, climbing the steps. I'm Vivian Pierce from across the street. I brought my signature sweet potato casserole. Deline always said it was Bowen's favorite. How thoughtful, I replied, wondering if I should start a casserole collection. Did you know Deline well? Oh, heavens, yes. Bridge club every Thursday for 20 years. She was so proud of her grandchildren, always showing off photos and videos. She mentioned you often, you know. She did? I asked, genuinely surprised. Vivian lowered her voice conspiratorially. She felt awful about the whole situation. Said Bowen was making a terrible mistake not coming clean to you. But you know how it is with sons. They can do no wrong in their mother's eyes, even when they're being complete idiots. Complete idiots was far too kind, but I nodded politely. Did Talia know about me? Vivian's face softened. Oh, honey. Talia thinks you're the villainous ex-wife who wanted nothing to do with Bowen or having children. According to the neighborhood gossip, that's how they got together. She was his shoulder to cry on after the devastating divorce. So not only was I the secret first wife, I was also the fictional evil ex who broke poor Bowen's heart. The irony was almost poetic. That must have been devastating for him, I said dryly, having to pretend his mother was dead while using her as free childcare. Vivian's eyes widened. Well, when you put it that way, Deline did say it felt like living in a soap opera. That's why she left you the house. Said it was the least she could do after being complicit for so long. After Vivian left, I poured another glass of Bowen's overpriced wine and called my best friend. Harper, remember when I said Bowen was acting suspicious? I began when she picked up. The mysterious weekend conferences. The burner phone in his gym bag? She said. Yeah. Turns out it wasn't an affair. It was a wife, a whole second wife, with twins. The silence on the line stretched long enough that I checked to make sure the call hadn't dropped. Harper, I said finally. I'm trying to process the fact that the man who complained about your Target shopping habit has been maintaining an entire second household on the opposite coast. Not just maintaining it, I added. He bought his second wife a $3.2 million beach house on Martha's Vineyard, while telling me we couldn't afford to remodel our bathroom. Harper's voice sharpened. Please tell me you're divorcing him. Oh, I'm doing better than that, I said, feeling a slow, satisfied smile spread across my face. I'm planning a Thanksgiving dinner where both wives will be present, along with some very special guests from the IRS. Odessa Harlo, you diabolical genius. Actually, I said, glancing at the documents in front of me, according to the Massachusetts tax returns, I'm Odessa Harlo and she's Talia Harlo. We're both Mrs. Harlo. It's like some bizarre sister-wife setup, except neither of us agreed to it. After hanging up, I wandered into the kitchen and found Delene's planning calendar. Every holiday was neatly marked, complete with guest lists and duration of stays. And there it was. Thanksgiving weekend, Bowen, Talia, and twins, arrival 2 p.m. Wednesday, written in her perfect script. That gave me exactly 8 days to plan the most painfully awkward family dinner in American history. My next call was to my cousin, Iris, a forensic accountant for the IRS. Hey, favorite cousin, I greeted when she answered. What do you need? Iris asked suspiciously. You only call me that when you want something. How would you like to spend Thanksgiving catching a tax evader red-handed? I'll throw in oceanfront lodging in Martha's Vineyard and front row seats to the public downfall of my bigamist husband. I'm listening. By midnight, a plan was forming. I'd need a lawyer. Bennett's contact, an IRS agent, came through with a referral. Documentation? Already gathered and photographed. The menu? Perfectly curated for my husband and his unsuspecting second family, who'd soon discover that wife number 1 had been waiting for their grand arrival. As I lay in Bowen's other marital bed that night, I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. My husband hadn't just been living a double life. He'd been living a better one without me. The Martha's Vineyard house was nicer than our place in Portland. Talia's engagement ring, proudly displayed in photos, was larger than mine. Even her coffee maker was the top-of-the-line model I'd been hinting at for Christmas. Joke's on you, Bowen, I whispered to the ceiling. Your mother left me the golden ticket to your downfall. And this Thanksgiving, I'll finally have something to be thankful for. Revenge, served colder than leftover turkey. The week before Thanksgiving, I realized that planning revenge was a lot like planning a wedding. Expensive, exhausting, and requiring far too many spreadsheets. The difference? This time, I was actually enjoying myself. My first task was finding a lawyer who specialized in bigamy cases, which, shockingly, is a real niche because people are disasters in designer suits. Bennett referred me to his colleague, Vivian Montgomery, who took one look at my evidence and actually slow-clapped. In 15 years of practice, she said, flipping through my perfectly organized files, I've never seen someone document their husband's double life so thoroughly in just 48 hours. Most clients come in with a single text message and mascara stains. You've brought me tax fraud, bigamy, and evidence that your husband used joint funds to buy property for his second family. I've always been detail-oriented. I shrugged. My performance reviews at work consistently praise my organization skills. Turns out they're just as useful for uncovering marital fraud as they are for marketing campaigns. You're handling this remarkably well, Vivian noted, peering over her horn-rimmed glasses. What can I say? Nothing clears your head like realizing your marriage was just a bad episode of Sister Wives, except none of the wives knew or agreed to it. So actually, more Criminal Minds than Sister Wives. While Vivian prepped the legal paperwork, Iris was gleefully dismantling Bowen's creative accounting. She arrived in Martha's Vineyard 2 days after my call, suitcase in one hand and her government-issued laptop in the other. "This isn't just casual tax evasion," she said, surrounded by spreadsheets on Delene's dining table. "Your husband's been defrauding Massachusetts, Oregon, and the federal government. He's claimed different primary residences, dependents, and deductions in each state. So he's not just a terrible husband, he's a terrible citizen," I said, refilling our mugs with coffee from the expensive machine that should have been mine. "The best part? He used your joint Portland account to funnel money to his Massachusetts family, then reported it as business expenses on your Oregon tax returns. Technically, you've been subsidizing his second family while getting a tax deduction for it." "How thoughtful of him," I said dryly. "At least he gave me a tax break while dismantling our marriage." The deeper we dug, the uglier it got. Bowen hadn't just been juggling 2 families. He'd been running financial shell games so elaborate, Bernie Madoff would have slow-clapped from his prison cell. But the real shock came 3 days before Thanksgiving, while I was sorting through Delene's personal papers in her study. Hidden in a false bottom drawer, apparently deceit was hereditary, was a 3rd set of property documents for a condo in Miami Beach. "You've got to be kidding me," I muttered, flipping through the stack of property records, utility bills, and school registration forms. It's not just a double life, it's a triple life. According to the paperwork, Bowen had also been maintaining a relationship with a woman named Ramona in Florida, and they had a 3-year-old son named Leo. Based on the timeline, that relationship overlapped with both his marriage to me and his marriage to Talia. I called Iris into the study. "How many families can one mediocre man support?" I asked, handing her the Miami documents. Iris let out a low whistle. "Apparently 3, if you're creative enough with tax fraud, and if you've got a hard-working wife in Portland whose income you can siphon off." That's when it hit me. I hadn't just been funding his Martha's Vineyard family. I'd been financing his entire harem of unsuspecting women across the country. Every promotion, every raise, every late night I'd spent climbing the corporate ladder had gone straight into Bowen's cross-country polygamy tour. "This changes everything," I said, a cold calm settling over me. "We need to find this Ramona before Thanksgiving." "You want to invite her to dinner too?" "That table's getting crowded," Iris remarked dryly. "No," I said. "I want to warn her. She deserves to know before Bowen gets arrested for tax fraud and bigamy." "She has a toddler, Iris. When this all began, I'd wanted revenge. But somewhere along the line, that rage had shifted into something else. A grim sisterhood with the other women Bowen had deceived. Talia, with her perfect house and designer wardrobe, had once been the villain in my mind, the woman who stole my husband. Now I saw her for what she really was, another victim of Bowen's lies. With Iris's help, I tracked down Ramona Santiago, a pediatric surgeon in Miami. Unlike me, a marketing director, and Talia, who owned a yoga studio, Ramona was the true breadwinner. Her prestigious job at a top Miami hospital likely made her Bowen's biggest financial target. After a day of hesitation, I called her. "Dr. Santiago, my name is Odessa Harlo," I began carefully. "You don't know me, but we have something significant in common. We're both married to the same man, Bowen Harlo." The silence that followed spoke louder than words. "I have reason to believe Bowen has been committing tax fraud using our incomes to support multiple families," I continued. "I'm in Martha's Vineyard right now, where I discovered his second wife and their twins. Then I found documentation of his relationship with you and your son in Miami." "This is some kind of joke," Ramona said finally, her voice tight and trembling. "I wish it were," I said softly. "But I have documentation, tax returns, property records, bank statements." Bowen told me his mother died 5 years ago. He told his Martha's Vineyard wife that I was a vindictive ex who refused to have children. "I can only imagine what he told you." "That he was a widower?" Ramona whispered after a moment. "He said his wife died of cancer before we met. That he wasn't ready to remarry, but wanted to build a life together anyway. Of course, In Bowen's warped little universe, I was dead in Miami, divorced in Massachusetts, and married in Oregon. The man deserved an Olympic medal in mental gymnastics. I'm planning to confront him at Thanksgiving, with legal representation present, I explained. I thought you should know before everything goes public. A long pause. Then finally, when and where? And just like that, our Thanksgiving guest list expanded to include not one, but 2 betrayed wives, plus an IRS investigator, 2 lawyers, and soon, local law enforcement. With Ramona on board, our strategy evolved. She couldn't make it to Martha's Vineyard for Thanksgiving because of her hospital schedule, but she sent over more documentation that completed the puzzle of Bowen's fraud. The pieces were all aligning. I hired a local catering company to handle the traditional Thanksgiving feast. No way was I cooking for this circus, and set up hidden cameras throughout the house to record Bowen's face when he walked in expecting his perfect family weekend, only to find his other wife waiting instead. 2 days before Thanksgiving, I got my hair done, bought a new outfit, and practiced my tough, surprised to see you face in the mirror. The outfit mattered. I chose a sleek ocean blue dress that matched the beach house decor perfectly, subtle, elegant, and symbolic. I belong there now legally and poetically, you know? Most people just serve dry turkey as their Thanksgiving revenge, Iris quipped, watching me prep with a grin. Well, I've never been most people, I replied, applying lipstick with surgical precision. Besides, dry turkey is a crime against poultry. Tax fraud and bigamy? Crimes against the federal government. I know which one I'd rather be guilty of. The night before Thanksgiving, sleep was impossible, not from fear but anticipation. For years, I had worked myself to exhaustion, building what I thought was our future. Now I knew I'd been funding Bowen's empire of lies. Tomorrow, the man who believed he was clever enough to juggle 3 lives would finally learn that he had underestimated the wrong woman. As I lay in what was technically now my master bedroom, I scrolled through the photos I'd found. The twins' beaming faces, blissfully unaware. Talia, radiant and deceived. Delene, smiling proudly beside the son she had secretly protected until guilt forced her to act. Thank you, Delene, I whispered into the stillness. Your final gift wasn't just this house. It was the truth. Thanksgiving morning dawned bright and crisp, as if the universe itself had ordered perfect weather for poetic justice. I woke at 6 a.m., no alarm needed. This was Christmas morning for the vindictive. By 10 a.m., the catering team arrived, unloading trays of roasted turkey, herb stuffing, cranberry sauce, and 3 kinds of pie. Enough to feed an army, or one oblivious bigamist and his entourage of unknowing victims. The table looks stunning, I told the head caterer, admiring the golden centerpiece and heirloom china. According to Delene's will, the china stayed with the house, mine now, of course. Just confirming, serving at 3? The caterer asked. How many guests? That's right, I said with a smirk. And honestly, I've lost count. Let's just say it'll be a full house of people who never expected to dine together. By noon, my team was assembled. Iris stationed herself in the study, laptop open and spreadsheets glowing. Vivian spread neatly tabbed legal documents across the living room coffee table. Bennett arrived next, notary in tow, armed with a court order authorizing the freezing of Bowen's assets the moment the evidence was presented. Outside, 2 local officers waited discreetly in unmarked cars, ready for the finale. You seem disturbingly calm, Vivian remarked, watching me arrange the name cards. I had my breakdown on Tuesday, I replied evenly. Placing Talia Harlo directly across from Odessa Harlo, screamed into a pillow, threw a few of Bowen's vinyls into the ocean, and then regrouped. Today isn't about emotions, it's about execution. At 1:45 p.m., Otto from next door texted, Black Range Rover just turned onto the street. License plate matches, showtime. I settled into Delene's favorite armchair, legs crossed, a glass of Bowen's finest Cabernet in hand. My blue dress shimmered in the afternoon light. The hidden cameras were rolling. The legal team stood ready behind closed doors. At precisely 2:03 p.m., Tires crunched over the gravel driveway. Car doors slammed. A child's voice rang out, "Grandma, we're here." Keys jingled. The front door opened, and there he was, my husband of 8 years, Bowen Harlo, smiling broadly, luggage in both hands. Behind him walked a stunning redhead herding 2 blonde children who were unmistakably his. It took exactly 3 seconds for his expression to curdle, from festive cheer to sheer paralyzed horror. "Oh. Odessa," he stammered, the suitcases thudding to the floor. What are you doing here?" I smiled sweetly and lifted my glass. "Happy Thanksgiving, honey. Surprise." Talia blinked, confusion knitting her brow. "Bowen, what's going on? Who is this woman?" "Yes, Bowen," I said, my voice calm, razor sharp. "Why don't you introduce us properly? I've been dying to meet your Massachusetts family." The twins peeked out from behind their mother's legs, wide-eyed and silent, as the weight of Bowen's unraveling lies filled the room like thick, suffocating smoke. Stella, whom I recognized instantly from the photos, spoke first. "Daddy, who's that lady sitting in Grandma's chair?" Bowen's face went ghost white. He looked like a man watching his whole world collapse, which, to be fair, was exactly what was happening. "Talia, kids, why don't you go check out the beach?" he said weakly. "I need to talk to an old friend." "Oh no," I said, standing up. "Please stay, Talia, this concerns you too." I turned to her with a calm smile. "I'm Odessa Harlo, Bowen's current wife of 8 years. Not his ex-wife, as I assume he's told you. Current, as in still legally married. Just like you apparently are." Talia's face shifted from confusion to disbelief, then to fury. "What is she talking about, Bowen? You said you were divorced." "Now might be a good time to mention," I continued smoothly, "that Deline left this house to me in her will. So technically, you're all standing in my foyer right now." "That's impossible," Bowen stammered. "My mother died 5 years ago." "Did she?" I asked lightly. "That's fascinating because she very much died last Thursday, heart attack. I have the death certificate if you'd like to see it. And her will, naming me as the sole inheritor of this property. Oh, and Bennett Crawford is in the kitchen if you'd like to verify. He says hello, by the way." Right on cue, Bennett stepped into the living room, giving Bowen a solemn nod. "Mr. Harlo, my condolences on your recent loss." "Again!" Talia backed against the wall, clutching her children close. "Bowen, what is happening?" "You told me your mother died of cancer years ago. You said this woman," she pointed at me, "divorced you because she didn't want kids." "Oh, I wanted children," I clarified. "We went through fertility treatments for years. Apparently, Bowen's low sperm count was only an issue on the West Coast. Seems his swimmers worked just fine in New England." That's when the doorbell rang. "Perfect timing," I said, walking over to answer it. "That'll be the IRS." Iris entered, badge gleaming, followed by Vivian with her briefcase of legal documents. The look on Bowen's face alone was worth every penny of the flight. "Mr. Harlo," Iris began formally, "I'm Agent Iris Jensen with the Internal Revenue Service Criminal Investigation Division. We have evidence suggesting you've committed multiple counts of tax fraud across 3 states. I'm here to formally question you regarding these allegations." 3 states? Talia echoed. "What is she talking about, Bowen? Should we tell her about Ramona and little Leo in Miami?" I asked sweetly. "Or would you prefer to handle that part?" Bowen lunged toward the door, but Vivian stepped in front of him effortlessly. "I wouldn't recommend leaving, Mr. Harlo. There are officers outside, and fleeing would only add more charges. Besides, we're just getting to the good part, the part where we discuss how you've been using your wives' incomes to fund your cross-country lifestyle." The next hour unfolded like the finale of a particularly chaotic reality show. Talia learned that her perfect suburban life had been partly financed by my marketing director's salary. I learned that Bowen had been claiming multiple primary residences to minimize his tax burden. And we both discovered he had a 3rd family in Florida. The twins were led to the kitchen by the catering staff, distracted with pumpkin cookies while the adults' worlds fell apart in the living room. "So, let me get this straight," Talia said, her voice trembling with rage. "Your mother isn't dead. I'm not your only wife, and this house isn't even yours." And apparently neither is the vacation condo in Vale, I added lightly. Though we're still trying to figure out who Justine is, and whether she thinks she's married to you too. Bowen slumped onto the sofa, burying his face in his hands. This isn't how it looks. Really? I arched a brow. Because it looks like you've been committing bigamy, tax fraud, and wire fraud across multiple states, all while gaslighting at least 3 women into believing they were your only one. Please enlighten us as to how it actually is. He had no answer. By 3 p.m., the police had been called, statements taken, and Bowen had been formally served with divorce papers from both me and Talia. As it turned out, Talia was a former paralegal before opening her yoga studio, and she handled legal betrayal with impressive efficiency. The twins were given a gentler version of events, that Daddy had made some bad choices and needed to talk to the police. They were remarkably unfazed, more concerned about whether Thanksgiving dinner would still happen than about their father's impending arrest. Of course there'll be dinner, I assured them. I ordered way too much food. It'd be a shame to waste it. And that's how I ended up having Thanksgiving dinner with my husband's other wife and their children, while Bowen was escorted to the local police station for some preliminary questioning about his creative financial arrangements. To new beginnings, Talia said, raising her glass across the table once the kids had been excused to watch a movie in the den. And to Deline, I added softly, who, in the end, did the right thing. We clinked glasses, 2 women bound by betrayal and expensive Cabernet, as the sun sank over the Atlantic, painting the sky with gold and fire from a house that was now legally mine. So, Talia asked, cutting herself another slice of pumpkin pie, what exactly are you planning to do with this place? 6 months after that unforgettable Thanksgiving, I was sitting on the wraparound porch of my Martha's Vineyard beach house, my beach house, watching the sunset melt into shades of pink and gold over the ocean. A glass of wine in one hand, my finalized divorce decree in the other. I felt like I'd just graduated from the world's most expensive masterclass in trust issues. Life takes strange turns. One moment you're working overtime to afford a bathroom renovation in Portland, and the next, you're the owner of an oceanfront property on an island where presidents vacation. All it takes is discovering your husband has been auditioning for America's most talented bigamist. The legal aftermath of Bowen's deceit played out like a juicy Netflix docuseries. The tax fraud charges alone carried a potential 5-year sentence. Add in wire fraud, bigamy, still illegal in Massachusetts, who knew? And misappropriation of funds, and Bowen was staring down enough prison time to qualify for a senior discount by the time he got out. His defense strategy was almost impressively delusional. I never meant to hurt anyone. As if accidentally tripping and falling into multiple marriages across state lines was a common workplace hazard. Oops, slipped on a wet floor and somehow signed 3 marriage certificates and 5 tax returns. The most darkly hilarious moment came during the asset discovery phase, when investigators uncovered not only the Miami family and the Vale condo belonging to his girlfriend Justine, thankfully, not another wife, but also a timeshare in Scottsdale, and a boat docked in Seattle. My husband hadn't just lived a double or triple life, he'd built an entire franchise network of deceit across the country. Did he have a frequent flyer spreadsheet to keep track of all this? My therapist once asked during a session. Actually, yes, I replied, color-coded by family, with alerts for birthdays and anniversaries. Morally bankrupt, sure, but organizationally gifted. In a strange twist of female solidarity, Talia, Ramona, and I formed a sort of support group. Monthly Zoom calls became our ritual, 3 women united by identical heartbreak and atrocious taste in men, swapping notes on divorce proceedings and co-parenting. We called ourselves the First Wives Club. Technically, I was the only first wife, but the irony wasn't lost on anyone. Talia expanded her yoga studio to 3 locations and moved the twins back to her hometown in Connecticut. I want them to grow up around people who don't think having multiple families is a creative lifestyle choice, she joked. Ramona, still thriving as a pediatric surgeon in Miami, raised little Leo, now in preschool, and told us during one Zoom, "I always tell my patients' parents to trust their instincts." Maybe I should have taken my own advice when Bowen kept disappearing for consulting jobs that never had paperwork. As for me, I sold our Portland house, quit my corporate job, and launched my own marketing consultancy specializing in reputation management. Ironically, nothing teaches you about brand authenticity quite like discovering your entire marriage was fiction. The Martha's Vineyard property became my main home, though I rented it out during tourist season for an obscene amount of money. Nothing soothes the sting of betrayal quite like charging $15,000 a week to CEOs vacationing in the same ocean view, home your bigamist husband once thought was his birthright. Delene's final gift wasn't just the real estate, it was freedom. The kind that comes from financial security and the peace of knowing I'd never again bankroll a man's deception. The neighbors, after recovering from the initial gossip storm, became unlikely allies. Otto still drops off tuna casserole every Tuesday. Vivian keeps me updated on island gossip during our weekly bridge games, a hobby I took up specifically because Delene had loved it so much. In a strange way, I hadn't just inherited Delene's house, I'd inherited her community too. Sometimes, late at night, I catch myself wondering if Bowen ever truly loved any of us, or if we were simply convenient disguises for a man addicted to duplicity. Then I remember the look on his face that Thanksgiving day, the instant he realized his carefully constructed empire of lies had crumbled. That wasn't the expression of a man losing love. It was the look of a man losing leverage. They say living well is the best revenge, but I've come to disagree. The best revenge is living authentically after someone has forced you to participate in a lie. Every morning I wake up in this house, my house. I remind myself that truth has an uncanny way of surfacing, even after years buried beneath deception. Last week, I received a letter from Bowen's prison address. I recognized the handwriting instantly. The same looping script that once signed anniversary cards promising eternal devotion, while he was simultaneously making the same promises to at least 2 other women. I placed it, unopened, on Delene's antique desk beside the family photos I'd chosen to keep. Not of Bowen, but of the twins and little Leo, innocent bystanders caught in the wreckage of their father's fraud. Those children are the only legacy worth salvaging. Talia and Ramona have both agreed to occasional visits, creating a new kind of family, one built on honesty, empathy, and survival instead of deceit. As for the letter, it remains unopened. Some stories don't deserve a sequel. The sun sinks low beyond the horizon, casting golden shadows across my porch, my house, my life, all reclaimed from the man who thought I wouldn't be smart enough, brave enough or furious enough to untangle his web of lies. Turns out, hell hath no fury like a woman with access to tax records, and a really good forensic accountant cousin.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.